Hello, and welcome to Fluent English Journey, the space where we improve your English while also exploring ideas that help you understand yourself better. I'm really glad you're here today because this episode is about something very important: understanding your needs, wishes, and expectations. You might think these words sound like they belong in a self-help book or a psychology class, but actually, they are part of our everyday lives. Every decision you make, every conversation you have, every moment of stress or calm is connected to these three ideas. Yet, many of us rarely take the time to ask ourselves what really drives us. So, think for a moment. When was the last time you asked yourself, what do I really need right now? What am I hoping for? What am I expecting from myself, from others, or from life? Life can feel busy. We are juggling work, family, studies, or long-term goals. It's easy to go on autopilot and follow other people's expectations or chase goals that don't truly match what we need. And when that happens, frustration builds. Burnout starts to creep in. You might work harder and harder, but still feel unfulfilled. Understanding your needs, wishes, and expectations can also help you express yourself better in English. Instead of using simple words like "I'm tired" or "I'm fine," you can use phrases that show your feelings in a deeper way. For example, "I'm feeling disconnected." "I wish I could slow down." "I'm trying to manage my expectations." These are the kinds of phrases that fluent speakers use, especially when talking about personal or work challenges. Using them helps you communicate honestly and clearly, not just with words, but with meaning. Culture also affects how we think about these ideas. In some cultures, talking openly about your personal needs or setting boundaries can feel selfish or even taboo. In others, it is encouraged. Thinking about this helps you reflect on your own beliefs and decide which ones serve you and which ones you might want to change. As we go through this episode, I invite you to learn English and learn about yourself at the same time. Be curious about the words and phrases I use, but also about what is happening inside you as you listen. You can take notes, pause to reflect, and remember the phrases or ideas that feel important. This episode is not about perfect grammar. It's about understanding yourself and your world. By the end, I hope you'll walk away with not just better English, but also a clearer sense of your own needs, wishes, and expectations, and how they affect your life. So, take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's start exploring the trio: needs, wishes, expectations. Let's take a moment to pause and think about these three important words: needs, wishes, and expectations. We use them all the time, often without really thinking about them. They appear in everyday conversations, during conflicts, when we set goals, and even when we feel regret. But if we stop and really explore what each one means, not just in theory, but in real life, something interesting happens. Things start to become clearer. We begin to understand ourselves a little better. Needs. Let's start with the most basic of the three: needs. A need is something essential, something you truly cannot live or thrive without. And I don't just mean basic physical needs like food, water, and shelter, although those are very important. I also mean emotional and psychological needs. For example, the need to feel safe, the need to feel seen and understood, the need to belong somewhere. Needs are like oxygen. You may not notice them when they are being met, but the moment they're not met, it becomes impossible to ignore. If you feel constantly tired, anxious, disconnected, or on edge, it might be a sign that one of your core needs isn't being fulfilled. Here's something important: unmet needs don't disappear. They often show up in disguise. Maybe as irritability, procrastination, or just a vague feeling that something isn't right. Even if everything seems fine on the outside, unmet needs affect you on the inside. That's why understanding your needs isn't just helpful, it's vital. Needs are the foundation of your life. Without a strong foundation, Everything else, your work, your relationships, your achievements, can feel unstable. Wishes. If needs are like oxygen, then wishes are like stars. They shine in the distance. They give us direction. They can feel far away or sometimes even impossible to reach. A wish is something you desire, something you dream about, or something you imagine for your life. It is not necessary for survival, but it adds beauty, joy, and meaning to life. For example, you might wish to change your career, travel more, find love, feel more confident in yourself. Wishes show the part of us that hopes, the part that looks beyond the present and imagines something different for the future. But here's an important point. Not every wish becomes a goal. Some wishes are quiet and gentle. Others are loud and persistent. Some stay in your heart for years without being acted on, and that's okay. Wishing is not weakness. In fact, wishes can tell you what you truly value. However, confusion can happen when we mistake a wish for a need. For example, believing you need approval from others or need success to feel worthy. That's when life gets blurry. It becomes hard to know what is essential and what is simply desired. Expectations. Finally, let's look at expectations, which can be the most tricky of the three. Expectations are not just about what you want or need. They are often about what you assume should happen, sometimes without even realizing it. They are shaped by your past experiences, culture, upbringing, and relationships. Expectations are like an invisible script running in your mind. You may not notice them until reality doesn't match your assumptions. Then, suddenly, you feel disappointed, frustrated, or let down. For example, have you ever expected someone to text you back quickly and felt upset when they didn't? Or expected a situation to go smoothly and felt frustrated when it didn't? Expectations can sneak into our lives quietly, shaping our reactions before we even have a chance to think. They are not always bad. In fact, expectations help us plan, prepare, and navigate the world. But when they are unrealistic or unexamined, they can create stress, disappointment, and confusion. By understanding needs, wishes, and expectations, you can see your life more clearly. You can make decisions that actually serve you and communicate in a way that feels honest and authentic. Expectations can also become rigid or even unrealistic. When that happens, they can trap us. We start measuring our happiness not by what is real, but by what we assumed should have happened. So, to bring it all together, needs are what sustain you. Wishes are what inspire you. Expectations are what you predict or sometimes demand from life. These three often overlap, and that's where confusion begins. For example, you might expect appreciation at work, but is that expectation coming from a wish or from a deeper need for recognition and respect? You might wish to be in a relationship, but is that wish actually masking a need for emotional safety, or is it shaped by social expectations about where you should be in life? The more you learn to differentiate these three elements, the more empowered you become. When you know what you truly need, you can prioritize. When you know what you genuinely wish for, you can dream without guilt. When you recognize your expectations for what they really are, assumptions, not facts, you can approach life with more flexibility and compassion, both for yourself and for others. Here's something important for your English development. Notice how many abstract nouns we've used. Words like belonging, safety, recognition, disappointment, fulfillment. These are words you cannot touch or see, but they describe real emotional experiences. They give shape to your inner world. That's the beauty of learning English at this level. You're not just describing what you do or what you like. You're learning to articulate your feelings, hopes, and expectations. That is powerful. Now, as we move forward in this episode, I invite you to reflect on this question. Can you identify one current need, one honest wish, and one hidden expectation in your life right now? Don't rush. Just sit with the question. Often, Clarity begins not with the answers, but by learning to ask better questions. Digging deeper into needs. Needs are what you cannot live without. Not the kind you can ignore or postpone, but the ones you carry every day, whether you notice them or not. When needs go unmet for too long, it's not just your energy that fades. Your motivation, confidence, and ability to connect with others can start to unravel. You may have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a psychological theory often taught in Western education and personal development discussions. Even if the name is new, the idea might feel familiar. Picture a pyramid. At the base are your basic physical needs: air, food, water, sleep, shelter. These are non-negotiable. If they are missing, your mind and body go into survival mode. Next is safety, not just physical safety, but also financial security, health, and emotional stability. Above that are love and belonging, then esteem, and finally, at the top, self-actualization, the deep drive to become the best version of yourself. Here's what's interesting for today's world. Many of us have our basic needs met. We have a roof over our heads, food in the fridge, and relative safety. And yet, many people carry a quiet feeling of emptiness or dissatisfaction. Why? Because even when lower-level needs are met, our emotional and psychological needs often are not. And these needs are just as important if we want to truly live, not just survive. Let's think about connection. Today, it has never been easier to send a message, share a photo, or start a video call. We are constantly connected. And yet, many people feel deeply alone. Why does this happen? Because real connection, the kind that meets your need to feel seen, heard, and understood, cannot be replaced by digital interaction alone. Emotional needs, like the need for intimacy, deep conversations, and presence, require time, trust, and attention. Scrolling through social media, reacting to posts, or texting doesn't satisfy these needs. And when these needs are not met, even if everything looks fine on the outside, inside, you can feel hollow or disconnected. Another important need is recognition. Not fame or attention, but the simple human need to be acknowledged, to feel that your efforts, struggles, and growth are noticed. For example, in the workplace, someone may consistently give their energy and effort, but feel invisible. Deadlines are still met, work continues, but emotionally, something begins to shut down. Burnout can set in. This shows how unmet emotional needs affect not just your mood, but also your identity, motivation, and sense of self. Sometimes, our needs are dismissed by others, or even by ourselves. Many of us are taught, often without realizing it, that needing too much is weak, selfish, or inappropriate. In some cultures, there is pride in being self-sufficient. You are praised for handling everything on your own. But here's the truth: no one is truly self-sufficient. Humans are inherently social and emotional beings. We need care, affection, and affirmation. That is not a flaw, it is part of being alive. Needs are also not static. They change over time. The needs you had at age May 20th be very different from the ones you feel at 30 or 40. Life circumstances change. You may move to a new country, lose a job, become a parent, fall in love, or face illness. Each change transforms your inner landscape. Sometimes needs become subtle or complex. You may not be able to name them immediately, but they show up in how you react, how you relate to others, and how you feel at the end of the day. From a language learning perspective, being able to express needs clearly is more than useful, it is empowering. Instead of saying, "I'm not okay," you can say, "I'm feeling overwhelmed because I need more clarity." "I'm angry," you can say, "I need to feel respected in this conversation." These phrases show emotional precision, a skill that takes time to develop in any language. But once you have it, your communication becomes clearer, more honest, and more compassionate. Here are some common phrases or collocations related to needs. Meeting a need, fulfilling a need, identifying unmet needs, addressing basic needs. In professional or formal contexts, you might hear, her emotional needs were overlooked. His psychological needs were not acknowledged. Notice how the passive voice is often used here, especially when talking about needs that were ignored or forgotten. His need for support was completely dismissed. Using these patterns will help you sound fluent and natural, especially when discussing sensitive or abstract topics. So here's a question for you to reflect on. What is one need in your life right now that is quietly asking for your attention? It's not shouting, not demanding, just waiting for you to notice. Maybe it's the need for rest. Maybe it's the need for an honest conversation. Maybe the need in your life is to feel more secure, more accepted, or more seen. Whatever it is, take a moment to name it. Because once you name something, you can understand it. And once it's understood, it can be addressed. Now let's shift our focus from needs, what we require to survive, to wishes, what we hope for to feel truly alive. If needs are the ground beneath your feet, then wishes are the sky above your head. They represent the part of you that imagines, dreams, and looks forward. Unlike needs, wishes aren't essential for survival, but they are essential for meaning. Wishes carry hope, give direction, and connect you to possibility. When we talk about wishes in English, we often use phrases like, "I wish I could," "if only I had." These are examples of the subjunctive mood, a way of expressing things that aren't true yet, but are longed for. For example, I wish I spoke Italian fluently. I wish I had taken more risks in my 20s. These are not facts. They are expressions of longing. Longing is a deeply human emotion. It shows that something inside you is reaching for something just out of reach. I remember a time when I felt stuck in a routine. Everything was safe, predictable, but not inspiring. Work, commute, obligations, every day looked the same. Nothing was wrong, but nothing felt exciting either. Then I noticed a quiet thought returning again and again. I wish I could work on something meaningful. I wish I could build something of my own. This wish was quiet. It didn't demand action immediately, but it kept returning, like a soft song in the background. Over time, it led me to take small, intentional steps. It didn't happen overnight, but it started with imagining a different future. That is the power of wishing. It gives you a place to start. Of course, not every wish becomes reality. Wishes often touch on fantasy. You might wish to live by the ocean, travel the world, or undo a past mistake. Some wishes are realistic, some are not. But even unrealistic wishes reveal what you value, what feels missing, beautiful, or meaningful in your life. Think about it. I wish I had more time really means I long for balance, space, maybe even peace. I wish I could speak freely at work reflects a desire for safety or authenticity. Even small wishes have stories behind them. I wish I could sleep in tomorrow. I wish I were more confident. I wish I hadn't said that. These are not just casual thoughts. They are quiet messages from your inner self. Conditional thinking often comes into play with wishes. You might say, if I had more money, I'd quit my job. If I lived somewhere else, I'd be happier. These thoughts can motivate, but they can also become traps. If your happiness always depends on something external, a perfect moment, a perfect condition, you might wait forever. There is a fine line between envisioning a better life and postponing the life you already have. Still, we all carry a collection of wishes inside us. Some are bold, some are quiet, some from childhood. Not all of them need to come true to serve a purpose. Simply imagining something better can be energizing, reminding you that change is possible, that you are not stuck, and that maybe the life you want is closer than you think, if you are willing to listen to your own yearning. From a language perspective, expressing wishes is a beautiful way to develop emotional fluency in English. It helps you talk about hopes, dreams, and desires with clarity and authenticity. You're not just learning grammar rules. You're learning how to share your deepest hopes, regrets, and visions. For example, the phrase, "I wish I had," is often used to reflect on the past. It's a kind of emotional storytelling. Meanwhile, "I wish I could," or "I wish I were," points to something you want but don't currently have. These structures are useful not only in conversation, but also in journaling, coaching, and even poetry. As you expand your English vocabulary, try using more expressive words. Instead of just saying want, try long for, yearn for, dream of, envision. These words add color, depth, and emotion to your speech. Here's a reflection question. What is one wish you've been carrying quietly, maybe for years, but haven't fully acknowledged? Maybe it's a lifestyle change, a relationship shift, a creative pursuit, or the wish to forgive someone or even yourself. Whatever it is, give yourself permission to imagine it. Not to plan, not to analyze, just sit with it. Allow yourself to want it without shame. Wishing is not weakness. It's a form of self-recognition. It helps you begin to tell yourself the truth about what really matters to you, even if you're not ready to act yet. Expectations, the invisible script. Now let's talk about expectations. Most of us carry them, often without realizing it. Expectations are like an invisible script running quietly in the background of our lives. They shape how we think, how we behave, how we judge others, and most importantly, how we judge ourselves. Unlike needs or wishes, expectations often feel like they're just there. We rarely question where they came from or whether they still serve us. But they shape our reality, sometimes in helpful ways, and sometimes in ways that quietly sabotage our well-being. At their core, expectations are beliefs about how things should be, how people should act, how life should unfold, or how we should feel by a certain age. The word "should" is central here. It is subtle but powerful. We say things like, "I should be more productive. He should have known better. By now, I should have figured it out." These statements may sound reasonable, but they carry an invisible pressure, a constant feeling that something isn't enough. Many expectations are not consciously created. They're internalized over time, shaped by culture, family, education, religion, and media. You might have grown up hearing, "Success means financial security. Real men don't cry. You must always put others first." Even if nobody said these words out loud, they were there between the lines, becoming part of the inner script you try to follow. For example, a listener once told me, "I was raised to believe that if I wasn't constantly achieving something, I was wasting my potential." This belief wasn't her choice. It was passed down, almost like a family heirloom. As an adult, it became heavy, exhausting, and even harmful. She felt she was always falling short, no matter how hard she worked. This is what expectations can do. They create a gap between who we are and who we think we're supposed to be. That gap is hard to close. In professional life, expectations can be even stronger. You're expected to be efficient, ambitious, emotionally intelligent, collaborative, independent. And depending on your workplace, there may be unspoken rules about how you should speak, dress, react, or perform. If you don't fit the model perfectly, you might start to question your own value, even if you are doing your job well. When expectations are unrealistic or conflict with your personal values, stress, anxiety, and self-doubt appear. There's also a difference between external and internal expectations. Sometimes it's not even about what others demand, it's about what we expect from ourselves. I should be better by now. I should never make mistakes. I should always be in control. These internal shoulds quietly shape how we experience life. Recognizing them is the first step toward freedom and self-compassion. These inner expectations are often the harshest. They come from a desire to live up to some ideal. When we don't meet that ideal, we can feel guilty, ashamed, or unworthy. We compare ourselves to people online, our younger selves, imagined versions of who we think we should have become. Very often, we don't even stop to ask ourselves, is this expectation fair? Is it realistic? Is it even mine? In English, expectations often appear through modals of obligation. Words like should, must, have to, ought to. For example, you must be polite. I should exercise more. We're supposed to finish this by Friday. These phrases are common in both formal and informal English, and they often reflect an underlying rule or social norm. But just because something is expected does not mean it's right for everyone. One person's success might be another person's burnout. We also use idiomatic expressions to talk about expectations. For instance, I'm trying to live up to my parents' standards. I fell short of my goals. These idioms express a gap between what was expected and what actually happened. That gap often carries emotional weight, disappointment, frustration, even shame. Expectations also affect relationships. We expect friends to understand us, partners to support us, colleagues to cooperate. When reality doesn't match the story in our minds, conflict often follows. In many cases, those expectations were never clearly communicated. They were assumed. And that's where problems start. As the saying goes, unspoken expectations are premeditated resentments. Harsh, but often true. What can we do? The first step is to start noticing. Notice when a sentence in your mind includes the word should. Ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Is it really mine? Does it help me or does it hold me back? You don't need to throw away all expectations. Some are healthy. They guide your behavior, help you set goals, and push you to grow. But many, especially unconscious, inherited ones, might be quietly running your life without your permission. Here's something to reflect on. What is one expectation you're carrying right now that feels more like a burden than a motivation? And if you could rewrite that part of your inner script, what would you choose instead? Internal dialogue, listening to your inner voice. So far, we've explored needs, wishes, and expectations, these powerful forces that shape our experience. Now, let's turn inward in an even more personal way, internal dialogue. This is the quiet, or sometimes loud, voice in your head. The one that comments, judges, questions, criticizes, worries, replays the past, imagines the future. In simple terms, it's how you talk to yourself. And how you speak to yourself matters far more than many people realize. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you really listened to your inner voice? Not just what it was saying, but how it was saying it. Was it kind? Was it patient? Or was it frustrated, harsh, or dismissive? Our internal dialogue, this voice in our heads, plays a huge role in shaping our emotions, our decisions, and even our relationships. And yet, most of it happens automatically. We don't always stop to ask, why am I speaking to myself this way? Where did this voice even come from? The truth is, your internal dialogue is heavily influenced by your past, especially the messages you absorbed during your formative years. Maybe you grew up hearing, don't be lazy. That's not good enough. You're too sensitive. Even if nobody says these things to you now, they might still live in your mind, repeated in your own voice. These internalized messages often become what psychologists call limiting beliefs. Ideas you've accepted as truth, even if they're holding you back. Beliefs like, I'll never be confident. I'm not creative. People like me don't succeed. Limiting beliefs aren't always obvious. Sometimes they hide inside your thoughts as facts, even though they aren't. For example, Imagine you're preparing for an interview and a voice in your head says, "Don't mess this up." You always freeze when you're nervous. That may sound like a warning, but it's really fear disguised as logic. Or maybe you've thought, "I'm just not the kind of person who can take risks." In reality, that's just a story you've told yourself, a protective narrative built from past experiences. Reactive versus reflective inner responses. There's an important difference between reactive and reflective responses inside your mind. Reactive responses happen automatically. They're quick, emotional, and often critical. They say things like, "Why did I say that? I'm so stupid. This always happens. I'm such a failure." Reflective responses are slower, more conscious, and more compassionate. They might sound like, "I didn't handle that perfectly, but I'm learning. That was uncomfortable, but it doesn't define me." The difference isn't just in the words, it's in the emotional impact. One creates shame, the other builds resilience. Shifting from reactive to reflective. How do we begin shifting from reactive to reflective? Step 1. Notice. Pay attention to the tone of your inner voice. Is it supportive or critical? Does it sound like someone you trust or someone you'd rather avoid? Step 2. Empathy exercise. Ask yourself, if I spoke to a friend the way I speak to myself, how would they feel? This question alone can reveal a lot. Many of us are far more compassionate toward others than toward ourselves. Words to notice. Some words often appear in internal dialogue. Should, always, never enough. Examples. I should be further along. I never get it right. This isn't good enough. These words are emotionally loaded. They often don't reflect reality, they reflect fear. In contrast, replacing these patterns with more nurturing language can shift your mindset. Words like trying, growing, learning, processing. For example, instead of, "I always screw this up," try, "I'm learning to handle situations like this better." Even a tiny shift in language can change your emotional state and outcomes. Internal dialogue and language learning. From a language perspective, internal dialogue is rich for building fluency, especially emotive vocabulary. Try describing your inner voice with adjectives like harsh, judgmental, cold, anxious, rigid. Or on the other hand, encouraging, forgiving, kind, wise, curious. These words help you analyze not just what you think, but the quality of your thinking. Embedded questions can deepen reflection. Instead of asking, "Why am I like this?" which often leads to shame, try, "What am I believing about myself right now? What might I need in this moment?" Notice how different those questions feel. Practice and growth. All of this takes practice. Learning to listen to your inner voice with awareness and then gently adjusting it is a long-term process. It's not about forcing yourself to be positive all the time. It's about creating space for a voice that is honest, compassionate, helps you grow instead of keeping you stuck. So, here's a reflection question. What does your internal dialogue sound like in moments of stress? And how would it change if it came from a place of care instead of criticism? And maybe even more importantly, what kind of inner voice do you want to develop? Not just for yourself, but for the person you are becoming. Navigating misalignment, when needs, wishes, and expectations don't match. By now, you may have noticed that needs, wishes, and expectations don't always work in harmony. In fact, some of the most difficult moments in life, moments that feel confusing, frustrating, or even painful, come from a misalignment between these three forces. Let's explore what that feels like when your needs, dreams, and expectations, either from yourself or from others, are out of sync. Imagine a scenario. Someone has a high-paying job, stable, respected, and impressive on the outside. They've checked all the boxes. They've done what was expected. But inside, something feels restless, empty, or numb. They might think, I should be happy. I have everything people say I'm supposed to want, but deep down, I feel empty. Why does this happen? Their emotional needs, like creativity, autonomy, or purpose, are being ignored. Their wish is to do something more fulfilling, something aligned with their values. Their expectation is that they should stay because that's what responsible adults do. They're caught in the middle. This is an example of cognitive dissonance, a psychological term for the mental discomfort we feel when our beliefs, desires, or behaviors contradict each other. It's that uncomfortable tension when you say one thing but feel another. Your actions go in one direction, but your heart pulls in the opposite one. And it doesn't only happen with careers. Think about relationships. A person might need emotional safety, but they stay in a partnership that doesn't provide it. Why? They might expect that love should be unconditional, or they should stay for the kids, or they wish things would magically improve. Here, the need, wish, and expectation are misaligned. It's like trying to walk in 3 directions at once. Misalignment and burnout. Misalignment can also lead to burnout, especially when you ignore your real needs for too long. You might keep pushing yourself to meet deadlines, work toward goals, take care of others. Even when your body is asking for rest or your mind is begging for a break, the expectation to keep going becomes louder than the voice saying, slow down. Even if your wish is to create a more balanced life, nothing feels in rhythm because your inner needs haven't been recalibrated. The culture of confusion. Modern culture often confuses wishes with expectations. We are told that if we want something badly, we must achieve it. Dreams should lead to success. Hard work must lead to happiness. The truth? Life is more complicated. Not all dreams are practical. Not all effort is rewarded as we hope. When wishes are treated as promises instead of possibilities, disappointment becomes inevitable. How to recognize misalignment. One clue is emotional. Frustration, indecision, or guilt often signal something is out of place. Feeling stuck but unwilling to stay? That's internal conflict. Asking yourself, why can't I be satisfied with what I have, may mean your outer life reflects expectations, but not your true needs or wishes. Listen to the language you use. I know I should be grateful, but I'm not. I want to leave, but I feel like I can't. I thought this would make me happy, but it doesn't. These sentences reveal contrast, and contrast often reveals truth. Even if your life looks fine from the outside, something inside is not being nourished. Others may see success, but you may feel unfulfilled. Reflection and self-awareness. When you feel this dissonance, slow down and reflect. Ask yourself, what need is not being met here? What wish am I secretly holding on to? What expectation am I trying to live up to that may be too hard? The answers may not come immediately, but asking the questions creates space for clarity. Language learning moment. From a language perspective, these situations are perfect for practicing. Contrastive expressions, at odds with, caught between. Phrasal verbs, push through, burn out, settle for. Example sentence. I felt caught between what I wanted and what was expected of me. This is not just grammatically correct, it's full of meaning, and meaning is what makes language stick. Final reflection. Bringing needs, wishes, and expectations into alignment. So, here's a question to consider. Is there a part of your life right now where your needs, wishes, and expectations feel out of sync? If so, what is one small step you could take to bring them closer together? It doesn't have to be a big decision. Even just noticing the tension can be powerful. Once you see the pattern, you are no longer trapped in it. You can start to write a new script, one that is honest, compassionate, and aligned with who you really are. Reclaiming alignment through conscious intention and self-kindness. After recognizing misalignment, the next step is to reclaim your balance and authenticity. This is not about perfection or quick fixes. It's about making conscious choices that reflect your true values, rather than reacting automatically or following external pressures. Reclaiming alignment begins with self-awareness. It means paying attention to your internal dialogue, your bodily sensations, your emotional responses. Ask yourself during your day, what do I need right now? What am I hoping for? What am I expecting from myself or others? Developing this habit of mindful reflection is the foundation for meaningful change. It creates space for transformation. The role of boundaries. Self-awareness alone is not enough. Once you notice the gaps or tensions, you need to practice setting boundaries. Boundaries may feel uncomfortable or even selfish at first, especially if you are used to prioritizing others. But boundaries are a form of self-kindness. They say to yourself and the world, "This is what I need to thrive, and I'm committed to protecting it." Boundaries might mean saying no more often, carving out time for rest or creativity, asking for support when you need it. Every boundary you set is a step toward realigning your life with what truly matters. Even small, intentional changes accumulate over time and can lead to profound shifts. You don't need to change your entire life overnight. Focus on what feels manageable and meaningful. Examples. Start journaling once a week to clarify your wishes. Commit to one evening free from work emails to allow your mind to rest. These actions are more than routines, they are declarations of intention. They tell your mind and heart that you are serious about reclaiming your agency. Language tips for empowerment. From a language perspective, this is a great moment to notice the power of action verbs. Words like reclaim, realign, reset, commit, embrace, nurture. These verbs focus on action and control, inviting you to step into the role of creator of your life. Example sentences. I will reclaim my time. I'm working on realigning my priorities. I'm ready to reset my boundaries. Notice how these verbs focus not just on what happens, but on what you can do. Future forms are also important. I will choose to honor my needs. I'm going to practice self-kindness every day. These statements affirm commitment in the present while planning for the future. Finally, don't forget the power of gerunds and infinitives in expressing your processes. I'm practicing listening to my inner voice. I'm learning to say no when I need rest. These structures show continuous growth and intention, helping you connect your words to real actions in your life. Closing reflection, living in alignment with yourself. You might talk about learning to listen to yourself, committing to setting boundaries, or choosing to prioritize rest. These kinds of verbal expressions highlight ongoing actions and decisions, showing that reclaiming alignment is a journey, not a one-time event. As you take these steps toward alignment, remember to practice self-kindness. Change is rarely linear, and setbacks or doubts are almost inevitable. When that happens, try speaking to yourself with the same compassion you would offer a dear friend. For example, instead of saying, I failed again, try, I'm learning, and every effort counts. This nurturing approach fosters resilience and opens the door to deeper transformation. A question to carry forward. What small intentional action can you take today, right now, to realign with your true needs, wishes, or expectations? It could be as simple as breathing deeply for a moment, writing down one boundary you want to set, reminding yourself that your worth is not defined by what you produce. Every step you take is an act of reclaiming your inner harmony, an act of kindness toward the person you are becoming. Living in alignment is not about perfection. It's about authenticity, courage, grace, It's about embracing your complexity, honoring your journey, and moving forward with intention and care. Pause and reflect. Before we end, take a deep breath and sit with what we've explored today. Understanding your needs, wishes, and expectations isn't easy. It's a journey that requires patience, curiosity, kindness toward yourself. Ask yourself, when was the last time I really checked in with myself? What needs have been quietly waiting for my recognition? Which wishes are pressing at the edges of my consciousness? What expectations, whether from family, society, or myself, have felt heavy or limiting? It's normal if you don't have all the answers. Sometimes, just asking the questions is the beginning of transformation. Using language as a tool. Language is a powerful tool for understanding both the world and yourself. Words and phrases like reclaim, realign, limiting beliefs, caught in the middle, are more than vocabulary. They're keys to expressing your inner life. Consider sharing your reflections with a trusted friend, mentor, or fellow learner. Conversations about these topics can deepen insight, offer new perspectives, remind you that you're not alone in navigating these universal challenges. A gentle challenge. Over the next week, try to observe your own internal dialogue, that constant stream of thoughts and feelings. Notice when your needs are being met, when your wishes ignite your imagination, when expectations feel like a heavy script. When you notice these moments, respond with kindness and curiosity, rather than judgment. Ask yourself, what is this trying to tell me? How can I honor this part of myself today? Remember, this isn't about changing everything overnight. It's about taking small, intentional steps to live more authentically, with awareness, courage, and self-compassion. Steps to reconnect and reclaim your power. Taking intentional steps to reconnect with what truly matters allows you to reclaim not only your personal power, but also your capacity for resilience and transformation. Thank you for tuning in to Code Your English. I hope this episode has sparked meaningful reflections and given you language tools to articulate your own journey with greater confidence. If you found this episode helpful, consider sharing it with someone who might benefit. Leaving a comment to share your thoughts. Your voice and experiences matter deeply. Until next time, keep listening to your inner voice. Keep asking questions. Keep being kind to yourself. Because understanding your needs, wishes, and expectations is one of the most powerful gifts you can give yourself, and that gift grows as long as you nurture it. Take care and see you in the next episode.